Welcome to AARP Connecticut in your community. Hi, I'm Elaine Werner. I am your host for today's program. I'm on staff with the AARP Connecticut statewide nonprofit office where we do advocacy and community outreach. We come to you in your local community with AARP's purpose in mind, and that is to empower you to choose how you live as you age. We hope to empower you today on how to age independently, feel safe, and live where most people want to live as they grow older, right in their own communities. Did you know that by the year 2030, our nation will face a severe shortage in accessible and affordable housing to meet the needs of the 1 in 5 Americans who will then be over the age of 65 in our country? I am proud to say that ARP is developing strategies to address the senior housing crisis and make all of our communities affordable and welcoming for people regardless of age, background, circumstance, or physical ability. Today, we will explore innovative housing solutions as we age, allowing us to remain in our own communities with family members and loved ones. I therefore introduce you to something you may not have heard of, the subject of ADUs, or accessory dwelling units, and our program is entitled today, Be My Neighbor in Connecticut. More on the program name to follow. And now I would like to introduce my guests. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Anna Doragazi. Welcome, Anna. Anna is my colleague in the ARP Connecticut nonprofit statewide office, where she is the Associate State Director for Advocacy and Outreach. And Anna, just a little bit about your great background. In your role with AARP Connecticut, you advocate for policies and practices that support family caregivers, very important to ARP, and you ensure that people have adequate access to health care. Anna, you came to ARP Connecticut from Albany, New York, where you worked on nonprofit policy issues for the governor's office there. And your background educationally, you have a master's degree from the London School of Economics. And I like to call you a passionate champion for Connecticut residents aging comfortably in their own communities. Once again, welcome, Anna.
Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you. And now I'd like to welcome our other guest, Melissa Kaplan-Macy. Welcome, Melissa.
Thanks,
And
Elaine.
Melissa, thank you. And Melissa is Vice President for State Programs, and she is the Connecticut Director of the Regional Plan Association. We're going to hear more about your organization in a moment, Melissa. But as I always like to say, I like to bring the experts to the show, and she is called that, an expert in land use planning and community engagement. Melissa is responsible for leading the Regional Plan Association's research, planning, and advocacy activities in Connecticut. She plays a leadership role with Fairfield County Center for Housing Opportunity regarding affordable housing in Connecticut. And she has served as the co-chair of the Governor's Transportation Policy Committee and serves on the Governor's Fairfield County Transit-Oriented Development and Task Force. Melissa holds a master's degree in urban planning from NYU's Wagner School of Public Service and a bachelor's in urban studies from Brown University. And Melissa, you are here today regarding the subject of housing affordability and partnering happily with AARP Connecticut. Now, for both of you and our viewer, I'm going to run a video right now. It's an animated tour, a video introduction to accessory dwelling units. So let's set up the show with that and roll tape.
Accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, can play an important role in serving our housing needs. These small auxiliary units were once commonplace in communities as alley flats, guest houses, and basement or attic apartments. But they're largely prohibited under today's building codes. ADUs can take many forms. They can be attached to an existing home or be a standalone structure. Let's explore some ways homeowners can build ADUs and how they can help older adults remain in their community. An existing garage offers several possibilities. For example, one owner might convert their garage into a fully accessible apartment for themselves as their mobility changes, and rent out their original house to a family to generate income. Or another owner might keep their garage and build an apartment over it as a low or no-cost apartment for a caregiver or family member. a basement could also become an apartment or an attic. The homeowner might also build a small standalone structure on their lot for guests or to rent out for additional income, or a family caregiver if they ever need one. And later could become their primary home when they want to downsize or live in a more accessible unit. Regardless of how and why they're built, ADUs can help ensure that people of all ages, including older adults, have more options in where and how to live in their own communities.
Whoa, I had no idea of all the options that ADUs can provide as to how and where to live in our communities. Awesome. So Anna, we're going to jump to you firstly regarding the video that we just showed. Again, it was an animation, but if you can elaborate, please, what is an accessory dwelling unit? And I want to just preface your answer. Yeah, I've heard that accessory dwelling units have been called granny and grandpa flats, secondary suites, English basements, accessory apartments, backyard cottages, etc. But if you can, for our viewer that may be the first time they've ever heard of accessory dwelling units, if you can elaborate, please.
Sure. So I think the easiest way to think of them is just that an ADU is a small house or apartment that's on the same lot as a single family residence. So depending on where you live, there might be specific requirements around having a separate entrance, or do you need cooking facilities, or there's certain requirements for exactly what that looks like. But they can take a lot of different forms. These can be basement apartments, attic apartments. You can have a converted garage, a separate cottage. And as you mentioned, they go by a lot of different names, including secondary suites or in-law apartments. So chances are you've seen one at some point. Maybe you have one or have lived in one. But yeah, they're really great opportunities to have smaller, affordable housing right in community settings.
Very good. And Anna, what is AARP's interest in supporting accessory dwelling units?
Sure. So our overall mission at AARP is to empower people to choose how they live as they age. And one of the biggest choices that we face as we age is where we're going to live. That's true as we're older adults, younger adults. That's one of the things that defines us. It's really important to who we are and what we do in our lives. And AARP has taken a lot of surveys about where people want to live as they age. And an overwhelming majority of people say that they want to stay in their current home or at least within their current community as they age. We have so many things in our communities that are important to us. It's where our social networks are. It's where we have established, doctors that know us, where we have a good relationship. It's where for some folks, you've raised your kids or you've been involved in certain, aspects of civic life. So as folks age, they don't necessarily want to stay in, maybe they have a large single family home with a big lot and a big lawn that they have to mow. They might not want to maintain all of that as they age. But for a lot of folks, it is important to maintain some of those connections within the community. And one way that we can do that is to make sure that there are affordable, accessible housing options in every community. And accessory dwelling units are a way to bring more accessible and affordable housing into communities.
Great. And, and we started the show, and I'm just going to keep repeating, where do most people want to be as they age in their own communities? You have reinforced right there. Melissa, going to come to you because you inspired me for the name of the program today, Be My Neighbor in Connecticut. Where did that name come from?
So, where you would expect, right, Mr. Rogers, so beloved by so many of us, and won't you be my neighbor? And what is, we really want to emphasize that in this conversation on housing choice, particularly in suburban communities, by providing opportunities for accessory dwelling units. It's really, everything that Anna just said. Be my neighbor. Let's stay in our neighborhoods that we've been in and create opportunities in the context of those neighborhoods to create smaller units, secondary units, that people can be part of a community at all incomes and ages of life. So we're really excited to kind of get that message out there that really, everything you said, Anna, in terms of this is really these units are out there, they've been out there. It's not a new concept. It's actually a very old concept, mother-daughter units, granny flats, whatever you want to call them. So to really get it sort of front and center as we're talking about aging in place and opportunity for people to stay in the communities that they've always been in. So, be my neighbor, and let's continue to create more opportunities for more neighbors.
Yeah, I love the name. It gives me a warm feeling. And, Melissa, some people may be thinking of these as like a little tiny little house. I think, Anna, you mentioned it has a kitchen. It does have a bathroom. Can you just sort of paint a vision of if our viewers trying to envision what does this really look like? And I think it can take on some different configurations.
Sure. So in terms of what it could look like, Anna went through sort of some of the different types of units, whether it's your garage that gets converted, or an attic or a basement, or maybe there's a smaller structure if you have a bigger property that gets built on the property, more of a cottage. But I think an important point in envisioning what that really means for people as they age is that really means there's so much more opportunity for you. If you're a single family homeowner, and so you're an older person living alone, or a couple living, your children have grown up and gone, you could stay in your main house and maybe a caregiver could live in the accessory unit to help you out, or you could downsize on your own property. We talk about staying in, aging in place. You could stay on your own lot and move into a smaller unit, and maybe you can live multi-generationally where your children and your grandchildren could live in the bigger house because maybe they need more bedrooms than you do. So it just opens up, these great opportunities. So when you kind of paint that picture in your mind of what we're talking about, it really is, just a neighborhood feel and a look that's very consistent with the character of suburban communities. And it's really just a win for everyone.
Great. You painted exactly the vision I was looking for there, Melissa. Thank you. And I've heard you say that accessory dwelling units and what we're talking about today, you said it's very gentle. You use the word gentle to the community. What do you mean by that?
Well, when we talk about creating more housing opportunity, particularly in Connecticut, there's a lot of conversation about, well, we like Connecticut the way it is. We don't want to change it, right? And so when we talk about the need, and the need is really great for more housing choice and housing diversity in Connecticut, when we look at ADUs as one of the options, it's really within that very similar, same character. You're not really changing anything about what a suburban scale kind of feels like when you're walking down the street. We sometimes talk about it as hidden housing. You don't even see it or notice it. I mean, I'm always on the lookout in my community. I live in a suburban community. I'm like, oh, wait, is that an ADU over there? But you don't really even see it or notice it. It's really a very gentle way to add a lot more capacity for people to be part of a neighborhood without it changing kind of people's understanding of what they think their neighborhood has looked like, sort of from a physical standpoint in the past.
So it's not a disruptive to the look of the neighborhood. It blends in, it's comfortable, it works, and it's not changing the characteristics of the suburban neighborhood or wherever it may be, correct?
Exactly.
Yes. Now, Melissa, you are again with the Regional Plan Association. This is an association that's been around 100 years. In fact, depending when our viewer is watching, coming up on the year that we're taping the show, I want to congratulate your organization. You're going to be celebrating your centennial of 100 years, founded in 1922. Do I have that right? And if so, tell us a little bit about your organization, please.
Sure. Thanks so much, Elaine. So we are a tri-state regional planning organization, and we've been active in the 3 states in the region, Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey, for coming up on a century. And we work on the major issues, the major systems of our day. So from the beginning of RPA, working on things like transportation infrastructure and economy and kind of getting people to move across the region. And today, really focusing in on things like housing affordability and how that connects back to the broader issues that we've always worked on around transportation, energy, and environment. So the way we work is that we issue long-range plans for the region about once every generation. The first plan in the 1920s, the most recent plan in 2017, and then we work with our partners on the ground, folks like ARP, to implement the policy recommendations for a sustainable region. And so one of the biggest issues of our day that we talk about in the 4th regional plan is around housing affordability, and identified ADUs as a really important piece of the puzzle. Obviously, it's not going to solve the whole affordable housing issue that we have in our state and in our region, but it's a really important piece of the puzzle. And in order to, to move a policy like ADUs forward, it's really important that we partner with folks on the ground in our region, again, like I said, AARP volunteers and staff like yourselves to really advance these policies, because of course it's a big region, and we really rely very heavily on our partnerships with all of the folks we work with across the region who are making the decisions on a local level every day.
Well, and we're very honored that from both standpoints that ARP has decided to partner with you and vice versa. I want to just also repeat, you were talking about accessibility and affordability. What I said in the opening of our show, that by 2030, our nation will face a severe shortage in accessible and affordable housing to meet the needs of 1 in 5 Americans, that by the year 2030 will be over the age of 65 in our country. So that makes this subject today, accessory dwelling units, ADUs, as they're calling them, as we're calling them, more prescient than ever. Melissa, you work with other organizations. You did talk about ARP, but just again, if you can solidify a little bit more, why is ARP a key player in this, according to you?
Absolutely. I love ARP. I just love the work that you do in coming at land use planning and a whole host of other issues from the perspective of we're all aging, all of us, and some of us are older today, all of us, God willing, will be older tomorrow. And so, when I think about the way we plan our communities as an urban planner, it's really important that we plan for the trajectory of over the course of our whole human life. And so it's really critical that we're thinking about all the different strategies around aging in place. And when we're thinking about land use planning, and the suburban nature of our state, 91% of land in our state allows single family homes. So when you think about what you just said about the aging of our population, the critical need for more housing, the land use patterns that we currently have, working together with AARP on an issue like this on ADUs could be really transformative if we're able to really encourage municipalities and homeowners to take advantage of this opportunity. We could actually make a real difference in addressing what we need to, which is just the fact of it, that our population is aging and we need homes. And it's really not fair to have older adults pushed out of communities, frankly, that they've lived in their entire lives because there just aren't housing options available to them. And as much as we're the land of steady habits and we really, cherish certain things that we hold very dear to, I think in that conversation, understanding that we can do that while making some changes like this so that we can actually improve the quality of life that we have and that we love in Connecticut and make it more welcoming to all of us as we all age. So I'm really thrilled that we have this opportunity to have this conversation, to be working together with ARP on this really important issue.
Thank you, as are we. And Anna, as you well know, Melissa probably as well, Connecticut is one of the oldest states in the country age-wise. We're in the top 7, at least as of this show. So the pressure is on for accessibility and affordability. And Anna, you and I are both so proud to know that the association that we work for is developing strategies to address this housing crisis and affordability. So Anna, let's get to some nitty gritty here. We may have some elected officials watching our show, who knows, some mayors, townsfolk who are interested in hearing more about this. I know the word has gotten out about this legislatively, but if you can talk a little bit about ADU or accessory dwelling units legislation, please.
Sure. So I think one of the reasons why this is very timely conversation is that during the last legislative session in 2021, lawmakers passed Public Act 2129, which it was a really big piece of legislation that did a lot of things and made some really important changes related to land use and zoning laws. But within this larger piece of legislation, there was a provision related to accessory dwelling units. And it, kind of the nutshell version of this is that, before January 1st of 2023, municipalities throughout Connecticut need to either update their municipal rules when it comes to accessory dwelling units. They need to proactively opt out of the provisions of Public Act 2129, or they need to do nothing, in which case on January 1st of 2023, the provisions that are written into that law will take effect in their community. So for these accessory dwelling unit provisions, municipalities need to allow these accessory apartments in their communities as of right, which basically means without a special permit or a public hearing. They need to allow both attached and detached accessory apartments. We had talked about how ADUs take a lot of different formats. Public Act 2129 also has some requirements around the size of the accessory apartments. The provisions say that you can't set minimum or maximum age requirements. So this isn't only for older adults. This is really for people of all ages, and it's a solution that works for people of all ages. So there are a lot of details about what this looks like, but again, then the nutshell is that towns need to think about ADUs this year and what how they're going to move forward with ADUs in their community.
And I'm sure a viewer might be thinking, wow, a lot of details to think about here, and new subject, ADUs, accessory dwelling units. As a viewer, if you do have questions about anything that we're mentioning, and we're going to put some websites up on the screen and talk about them, but you can always email us at ctaarp@aarp.org. Just put in the headline ADUs. You have questions, we'll forward you some of our great materials. Anna, you just touched, I know we're focusing rather on older Americans right now with ADUs, but you did mention they're not only for older Americans. Just flesh that out a little bit. Like what would, again, be the other uses besides people growing older and needing accessory dwelling units?
Sure. So I think one of the exciting things, whether we're talking about housing or transportation or just our built environment in general, is that if we design things that work well for older adults, it's almost certainly going to work well for young children, for parents, for students. So there's a great concept that people refer to as 880, where if you design something that works for both an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old, you're creating something that's going to be good for everybody. And that's the case with ADUs. So we're creating smaller neighborhood-based dwellings. From AARP's perspective, this is great if you're an older adult who needs a caretaker, if you want to downsize. But this is also a really exciting opportunity maybe for a student who went away to college and is coming back to their community. They want their own space. They can't afford, the 3,000 square foot suburban house just yet, but they know that, that's the community they want to live in. So this gives people, kind of an on-ramp into being members of their community. And it also gives people a little bit of an off-ramp if they say, I want to stay here, but I don't need as much house as I've had in the past. Or they want a little bit of income. We know that a lot of older adults, need a little bit of help paying the property tax, maintaining, certain aspects of their property. And this is a way to do that.
Very good. A lot of important points there. And you made me think of the word I love with ARP, Anna, and that's intergenerational. We like to think of our livable communities, as we say, from the cradle to the wheelchair, all the way, that whole spectrum. So you've just hit on the intergenerationality of the concept as well. Melissa, back to you for a moment. You have a very comprehensive website, www.rpa.org. Again, that refers to the Regional Plan Association, who you are with. Just let our viewer know a little bit, what can they find on that website, please?
Sure. Thanks, Elaine. There's a lot of research and policy resources on our website. So folks who want to dig in a little bit more on this issue and other related issues, like I mentioned, and sort of the intersection of how housing fits into sort of the broader context of a sustainable, prosperous, healthy region. Please do check out our website. 2 resources in particular on this conversation I would point folks to is our Be My Neighbor report that you referenced at the beginning of the conversation, Elaine. We looked at the opportunity for accessory dwelling units across the whole tri-state region, and we have a nice report that lays out a lot of the frameworks and talks about best practices and gives folks a real flavor of all the related issues on the topic. And we also did a deep dive in Connecticut and Fairfield County, so you'll also find Be My Neighbor in Fairfield County. And that report, we actually looked more deeply at Fairfield County and looked at land use and planning and zoning, and what the opportunity was actually at the parcel level, how many units you could create in each town with accessory dwelling units. So I think that's really important. It helps to set an understanding of, if we were to really move this forward and try to encourage folks to zone for, like Anna said, opt in to ADUs, what's the real potential here? So that gives you a good kind of methodology and framework for what each town could potentially produce in terms of numbers in Fairfield County. So I encourage folks to take a look at that.
Great website. Again, that's www.rpa.org. And Anna, to the ARP websites, there is the arp.org /livable. Again, we're going to put this up on the screen, arp.org /ADU. And I love what's there. If you can just very briefly talk about it, not much time to go. The ABCs of ADUs as a resource, digital and hard copies. Very quickly, what's there to find?
Sure. The ABCs of ADUs is a really amazing award-winning publication that our AARP Livable Communities team has put together. It's a great primer for policymakers, local leaders, homeowners, really anybody who just wants to learn a bit about what ADUs are, some best practices for how towns and cities and communities can include ADUs in their mix of housing. So highly recommended as a next step for folks who want to learn more.
Very good. We got 1 minute to go here, so that's it, folks. But I'm going to ask each of you, Anna, very quickly, if somebody wants to engage on this subject, what do they do with ARP?
Sure. Feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address is adorgazi@aarp.org. Hopefully you can put that on the screen because I know it's a little bit of a doozy to spell. But yeah, happy to speak to anybody who's interested in this topic.
Thanks so much. And Melissa, lasting thought for our viewer from you.
Yes, I just would like to encourage everyone to really opt in, like I said, on ADUs, that this is such an opportunity for communities that, it's really exciting, and for folks to really start to talk to, local officials and let people know that you support this, that you think it's an important option for you to have in your town. So we get the word out that this really is an opportunity. We don't want to miss it.
Great. Thanks for my expert guest today. I'm going to call you experts. I think you are on ADUs, accessory dwelling units. You've been watching Be My Neighbor in Connecticut. Thanks to Melissa Kaplan-Macy, Regional Plan Association Vice President of State Programs and Connecticut Director, and Anna Dorgazi. She is the Associate State Director on staff for ARP Connecticut Advocacy and Outreach. Thank you both for being on the show today. Appreciate it. And I want to thank you. If you are a member of ARP, you are amongst more than 500,000 people right here in the state of Connecticut. If you'd like to volunteer with ARP on this subject or many more, please contact me, Elaine Warner. My information is on the screen. Don't forget that website, arp.org/ADU. We want to thank you for watching. We will come back to you in your local community very soon with resources and information to help you age with quality and dignity in your own community and empower you to choose how you live as you age. Thanks for watching.